No, half and half.
Fine.
Carol Burnett was known for her warmth, laughter, and the magical family-like bond she shared with her cast. For 11 seasons, audiences fell in love with her chemistry alongside Harvey, Vicki, Lyle, and the unforgettable ensemble. However, behind the laughter, one co-star harbored a dark side that threatened to unravel everything. By the 7th season, this person's behavior turned vicious, humiliating guest stars, spreading tension, and pushing Carol to her limits. When she confronted this person, the showdown was intense and almost explosive. What happened on that fateful week changed their relationship forever. In this video, we'll reveal exactly who crossed the line, how Carol handled it, and why it reshaped the dynamic of one of television's most beloved shows. To understand why Carol Burnett would go to war with a beloved co-star on her own show, you have to go all the way back to understand where she came from.
And it never occurred to me to be a performer at all. And so I wanted to go to UCLA.
Before she became America's queen of sketch comedy, Carol Burnett was just a skinny little girl from San Antonio, Texas, clutching big dreams in tiny hands. Born to parents who desperately wanted their own slice of Hollywood glory, Carol watched them chase fame straight into addiction. Both mother and father suffered from alcoholism, and their marriage crumbled not long after they made the move to California. Carol was passed into the care of her grandmother, May, lovingly known as Nanny. They lived together in a single cramped room in a rundown boarding house in Hollywood. Carol's mother stayed just down the hall, but emotionally, she always felt miles away. Food was scarce, privacy was non-existent, and money was a forever problem. But Nanny wrapped young Carol in relentless love and, most importantly, a weekly escape. Every Saturday, Nanny took Carol by the hand and marched her down to the local movie theater. There, for just a few cents, they would vanish into other people's worlds, laughing at goofy comedians, crying at dramatic love stories, and soaking up everything Hollywood had to offer. Those hours in the dark whispered to Carol that life could be bigger, better, stranger, funnier. Sitting in those seats, the dream began to form. Maybe she could make people laugh someday too. In school, she was shy but observant. She attended Hollywood High School, daydreaming about becoming a newspaper reporter, someone who told stories for a living. But when she made it into the University of California, Los Angeles, a miracle in itself, everything changed. She stumbled into a theater arts class, and suddenly something clicked. Performing live, hearing an audience roar with laughter, it felt like electricity in her veins. Still, college itself seemed unreachable. Tuition was $50 for the entire year, which might as well have been $50,000 for a girl scraping by in a boarding house. She was ready to give up. Then, like something out of a movie, Carol opened her campus mailbox one afternoon and found an envelope with exactly $50 inside. No note, no signature, just possibility. To this day, she still does not know who sent it. That moment shaped her forever. Someone believed in her, quietly, anonymously. And because of that belief, her life stayed on track. A few years later, fate stepped in again. After impressing guests at a party with a spontaneous performance, she was approached by a businessman and his wife. They had watched her make an entire room collapse in laughter without costumes, sets, or scripts, and they believed she needed to be in New York City. They offered her an interest-free loan of $1,000 so she could chase a real showbiz career. Their conditions were simple. She must never reveal their names. She must repay it in 5 years, and if she succeeded, she must find a way to help someone else someday. Carol moved to New York with nothing but a suitcase, a pocket full of hope, and that promise in her heart. She performed anywhere she was allowed: dingy clubs, cramped rehearsal rooms, living room showcases. Slowly but surely, she began to get noticed. It wasn't glamour, it was grit. But she never forgot where she came from. Those little acts of kindness, a mysterious envelope, or a generous stranger, shaped every decision she would eventually make in show business. Carol's entire philosophy was built on gratitude, teamwork, and spreading joy. She didn't want to compete with others. She wanted to lift them. Now that you know what kind of heart she had and the unbelievable journey that shaped her spirit, her rise to stardom becomes even more inspiring. And her intolerance for one toxic co-star makes perfect sense. Carol Burnett's first sip of true success didn't happen in Hollywood. It happened on a Broadway stage under bright lights and sweaty nerves. In the late 1950s, she landed the leading role in Once Upon a Mattress, a hilarious musical that cast her as a loud, lovable princess. Audiences went wild, critics followed. She didn't just perform, she exploded. That show earned her a prestigious Tony nomination, but even more meaningful to Carol was what she did behind the scenes that very same year. She quietly mailed a check to the mysterious benefactor who had once loaned her $1,000 so she could chase her dreams in New York, right to the day, as promised. That simple, private moment told you everything about the woman she was becoming. Her Broadway buzz caught the eye of television producers, and before she could catch her breath, Carol landed a regular spot on The Gary Moore Show. From 1959 to 1962, she stole every scene she appeared in, not with glamour, but with total fearlessness. One day she might be pretending to be a flustered housewife. The next she'd be playing her soon-to-be signature character, an overworked, underpaid, mop-wielding cleaning woman with messy hair and a heart of gold. Audiences didn't just laugh at her, they loved with her. In 1962, that love translated into an Emmy Award for Outstanding Performance in a Variety or Musical Program. Momentum was finally building. That same year, Carol joined her dear friend Julie Andrews on stage for a sensational musical special titled Julie and Carol at Carnegie Hall. The pairing of Andrews' angelic voice and Carol's off-the-wall comedy was an unexpected triumph. The show won an Emmy, cementing Carol's reputation as a woman who could hold her own with the very best, while spinning laughs that left you wiping tears. Hollywood now knew she wasn't going away. Still, Carol hadn't forgotten what she once promised herself as a little girl sitting beside Nanny in that cheap movie theater, that if she ever had the power, she'd build a place where everyone could feel safe and supported. So when CBS offered her a rare 10-year contract with the chance to create her own variety show, she did not hesitate. She rolled up her sleeves and got to work, determined to build a cast that felt more like a family than a payroll.
A variety show, the head of CBS, William Paley, said, "Okay, I'm the businessman, you guys are the artists. You do what you do and I'll stay out of your way." So we never had a table read, which they call, with all the writers and then the sponsors and the network. Never. Nobody ever bothered us. So.
The Carol Burnett Show premiered in 1967, and from day one, Carol was hands-on with everything, especially the cast. Her most important task? Finding the perfect comedy partner. She chose Harvey Korman, a seasoned performer known for his astonishing range. One moment he could be a snobby Austrian director, the next a frazzled husband clinging to his last nerve. Harvey proudly referred to himself as a second banana, a comic term for someone who makes the star look good. To Carol, he was more than that. He was her anchor, the straight man whose reactions made her wild, rubber-faced antics sing. Their chemistry was instant and undeniable. The audience could feel it. But as you will see, that same chemistry would eventually combust in devastating ways. For her younger sister role in the sketches, Carol discovered Vicki Lawrence, not through agents, but through a fan letter. Vicki was a 17-year-old high school senior whose mother mailed Carol a newspaper clipping pointing out her striking resemblance to the famous redhead. Carol was so charmed that she personally dug through the phone book, called Vicki's house, and soon watched her perform at a local pageant called Miss Fireball. What Vicki lacked in professional polish, she made up for in raw spirit. CBS executives begged Carol to reconsider hiring someone so green. Carol shot back with one of her most famous lines, "Diamonds are rough when you first dig them up." That gamble paid off. Vicki flourished under Carol's wing and became one of the show's brightest surprises. To round things out, Carol chose the impossibly handsome Lyle Waggoner, originally the show's announcer, who also dove into sketches when they needed a dashing leading man or clueless husband. With Harvey as her trusted partner, Vicki as her eager protege, and Lyle as the charming straight man, Carol had built a working family rooted in kindness, mischief, and respect. And from the beginning, she made her expectations crystal clear. Rehearsals were fun, but disciplined. Failure was allowed. Ego was not. "This is our sandbox," she loved to say. "We play, we support, we laugh." It wasn't just a slogan, it was her law. And for many glorious years, that law worked beautifully. The laughs were real. The bond was real. The success was real. But what happens when one member of the family starts believing they deserve more than the sandbox? What happens when ego steps on generosity and tension begins to crack the very heart of what Carol built? On camera, the Carol Burnett show looked like comedy heaven, and in many ways it was. Every week, the chemistry between the cast members, especially in sketches like The Family, where Vicki Lawrence morphed into the sharp-tongued mama, felt effortless.
Another snort for the birthday gal, huh, Mother?
Oh, no, I don't think so. What the hell, Ed?
But that effortlessness came from very different personalities colliding under intense pressure. Carol's bond with Vicki was pure heart. She didn't just hire her, she raised her in the world of comedy. Vicki arrived as a wide-eyed teenager who had never stepped foot on a television set. Carol became her mentor, coach, and sometime mother figure. She taught her how to wait for a laugh instead of rushing it, how to build a character from the inside out, and how to show up prepared no matter what. Vicki adored Carol for that level of care and credited her with shaping her into a real performer, not just a lucky kid who landed a dream job. Carol's connection with Harvey Korman was something entirely different, sharper, more electric. Harvey was not just funny, he was scientific about comedy. He analyzed jokes like a surgeon, dissected punchlines until they were razor sharp, and rehearsed until every beat felt perfect. Carol, meanwhile, thrived on spontaneity. She loved when things went a little messy, when the unexpected happened, when the laughter was real instead of rehearsed. That tension, her looseness against his control, became the secret sauce of the show. It was especially magical when Tim Conway, brought in as a guest star and soon after made permanent, began trying to sabotage Harvey's seriousness on purpose, tossing in unscripted lines just to break Harvey's famously straight face. Every time Harvey lost control and cracked up on camera, audiences went wild. Those unscripted giggles became the stuff of television legend. But not everything was playful behind the scenes. Harvey's relationship with Vicki never had the mother-daughter softness that defined her bond with Carol. Harvey admired her growth, but he expected perfection. And when Vicki stumbled, he could be impatient, even intimidating. He worried constantly about timing, scripts, and reputation. Where Carol built people up, Harvey sometimes broke them down without meaning to, driven by the fear that if one sketch fell flat, the whole show would crumble. That quiet friction, teacher versus prodigy, discipline versus vulnerability, mirrored a deeper split forming inside the cast.
I'd like a hot dog and a chocolate shake, please. Plain.
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 All right. Want a bun?
Of course I want a bun. What's a hot dog without a bun?
Lonely weenie.
For all the laughter he could create on stage, Harvey Korman was a man quietly tormented by his own mind off stage. His brilliance came with a cost, a relentless anxiety that never seemed to leave him. Fellow cast members described him as a complicated mix of genius and intensity. Tim Conway, who spent years working alongside him, called Harvey incredibly smart, but also prone to dark moods that could hit without warning. Comedy, which to most was a joy, was for Harvey a painstaking discipline. Every pause, every expression, every laugh had to be perfect. And if it wasn't, it gnawed at him. The light-hearted, playful atmosphere that Carol Burnett cultivated was often at odds with Harvey's inner storm. Off-camera, his perfectionism frequently spilled into frustration. Rehearsals could be tense, punctuated by scowls, withdrawn stares, or sharp remarks that startled even the most seasoned performers. Guest stars, crew members, and even younger cast members like Vicki Lawrence occasionally found themselves tiptoeing around him, unsure how to navigate his volatile moods. Carol had always built her show on a foundation of warmth, trust, and generosity, a space where creativity could flourish, and Harvey's behavior threatened that delicate balance. Carol often acted as both friend and anchor. She would pull him aside, talk him through his anxiety, and remind him of the brilliance he brought to the show. Yet as the seasons progressed, these episodes grew more frequent and more intense. The man who could make millions of viewers laugh each week was slowly becoming a source of tension and stress behind the scenes. For Carol, this was more than a management problem. It was a test of her leadership and the very values she had built her show on. How could she protect the heart of her show while still supporting a man who had been central to its success? The tipping point came during the show's 7th season. That week, the guests were Petula Clark and Tim Conway, two performers Carol described in her memoir as two of the nicest people in showbiz. But Harvey arrived in an unusually dark mood, scowling at nearly everyone he encountered. Reports from the day indicate that he was openly rude to both Tim and Petula, snapping at simple questions and treating their presence with irritation. For Carol, this crossed a line. She had long tolerated Harvey's temper when it was directed at her. She could handle his moods. But being disrespectful to guests was an entirely different matter. It violated the very essence of what her show represented: kindness, fun, and a welcoming environment. Carol confronted him in his dressing room. She told him that his behavior was unacceptable and could not continue. Harvey, unyielding, barked back that she should mind her own business. Carol, stunned but resolute, reminded him that the conduct of her cast toward guests was very much her business. The argument escalated, voices rising, tension filling the small space. Harvey dared her to fire him. Carol realized in that moment that this was not just about one angry man. It was about the principles of the show itself. Feeling trapped and knowing there was no other way, Carol Burnett made a decision that would forever change the dynamic of her show. She left Harvey's dressing room, walked straight to the producer's office, and explained the situation in unflinching detail. She didn't sugarcoat anything. The rudeness to guests, the tension on set, the way his moods were threatening the entire environment. Then, she called Harvey's agent to give him a heads up. There was no turning back. Carol returned to Harvey's dressing room, her mind steady, ready to confront him one last time. "You got your wish," she said calmly, meeting his eyes. "You were rude to our guests. I can't work like that. So if you want off, you're free to go." For the first time that day, the full weight of her words hit Harvey. The anger that had been simmering inside him evaporated, replaced by shock, disbelief, and a flicker of desperation. He immediately tried to backtrack, stammering and asking what he could do to make things right. Carol didn't raise her voice, didn't berate him. Instead, she spoke with a mixture of firmness and kindness. She told him that everyone had bad days, everyone had dark moods, but he could not bring them to work. The show needed him to be a source of joy, not tension. He had to choose to be a positive force on set. The change began almost immediately. The following Monday, Harvey walked into the studio and, spotting Carol down the hall, approached her with a grin so wide it could light up the room. He skipped, danced, and even whistled his way toward her office. Carol couldn't contain herself. She doubled over in laughter. It was a scene that perfectly captured both the relief and absurdity of what had just transpired. The confrontation had worked. Harvey's behavior shifted dramatically from that day forward. To cement the moment and add a touch of humor, Carol had a plaque installed on Harvey's dressing room door. "Mr. Happy-Go-Lucky." It was a gentle, permanent reminder of a breakthrough that had come from a difficult but necessary confrontation. Harvey, recognizing the need for change, began seeking professional help for his anxiety, and their working relationship not only survived but flourished.
People may forget what you said, forget what you did, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. So I'm hoping that I made them feel good.
Looking back, Carol's feelings toward Harvey were never about hate. They were complicated, layered, and deeply human. She felt frustration at his moods, disappointment at his outbursts, but above all, an unwavering affection for the brilliant, anxious man who had brought so much joy to millions. She disliked his behavior because it clashed with the core principles of respect, generosity, and joy that defined her life and her show. But she never stopped caring for him, never stopped respecting his immense talent, or recognizing the man behind the unforgettable characters he created. From that difficult week forward, Carol and Harvey found a new balance, one born not from avoidance or compromise, but from honesty, courage, and a willingness to face the uncomfortable truth, and it saved both their friendship and the heart of the show. So, what do you think about Carol Burnett's way of handling difficult people while still keeping her heart open? Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you're fascinated by the untold stories behind television legends, don't miss our next video.